Coming up. Keep it classy, keep it OEM. What?
Hey, it's in.
He actually installed the air sucky thingy. And how much power does it make now?
No! My beer belly didn't get any bigger. It's Supercharger time. Okay, I'm calm.
Say hello to Project Rottweil, what once was 1600 euros of scrap metal that I rescued from the back of the dealership lot. This E39 530i Touring was neglected in every possible way, and over the course of 7 episodes we completely rejuvenated this machine and brought it back to life. And now it's time to have some fun and get the 3-liter M54 inline 6-cylinder engine to make more power.
In here must be our man.
Enter Infinitas Supercharger kit. This beautiful ASA compressor will up the power from stock 231 to around 300 PS. Infinitas is a company with a rich history, brilliant engineering, and famous for crazy builds such as the E63 M6 with 1001 horsepower. I'm thrilled to be installing their components on my E39. We'll pay them a visit a bit later in the video. For now, onto the installation.
It's so pretty and clean, isn't it? Washed it for the first time since the last episode. Service position. Get a bolt through here, thread it in, and do the same on the other side. And service position achieved. I have instructions pulled up on my laptop over there, and first we need to start with this assembly and remove some parts like this cover for the fuel injectors. Next, the idle control valve and the throttle body. Nice and clean throttle body. Gigolo test. All good. Kung Pao chicken, the impossible. BMW without a single oil leak. Well, what's the cheat code? Maintenance. That's the one, maintenance. Stupid fan clutch. Probably should upgrade to an electric fan. Store it upright. Now we're gonna remove the belts, the AC belt, and the main accessory belt. This one we're not going to need anymore, I believe. Next, we need to remove this pulley here. The power steering pulley, then the power steering bracket, remove the connector from the alternator, then the oil temperature sensor, and oil pressure switch, which is the brown one here. Now we need to disconnect this vacuum line for the fuel pressure regulator that lives on the fuel filter. And we need to plug it to the back of the intake manifold. You have 3 connections here. I was running O2 pilot mode, which we are no longer going to run once we install the compressor, so I'm going to plug it in here. Okay, now we need to remove the CCV line here. Now we can use the supplied plug and close the hole on the intake manifold. Now we need to remove this line that goes down to the CCV regulator. And again, plug the hole with the supplied plug. This CCV line is in the way, so I'm going to remove it. All right. Gonna remove this bracket here for the purge valve. So now we need to cut this line that goes from the top to the bottom of the CCV. All right. So this end we no longer need. It's disconnected. As per this picture here, we need to cut this connection there. Now I'm going to clean this connection, and then this goes into this hose We can put this on the side for now. Now we need to remove the oil pressure switch and the banjo bolt for the Vanos oil line. Use some brake cleaner to clean around there. And now the Vanos oil line. At this point we need a special adapter banjo bolt so we can move over the oil pressure switch to the oil Vanos line. Unfortunately that bolt is missing from the kit, so Nico from Infinitas is going to send one tomorrow with express mail. In the meantime we're going to continue with everything else. Now I'm going to remove the oil dip. First use compressed air. It's dripping, man. Now I need to modify the oil dipstick so you can take this adapter. So this adapter goes right about there, and we need to measure 30 millimeters from this bracket here, so we can cut the dipstick there. And from that point we need to remove 28 millimeters of the oil dipstick. Now I need to deburr the edges and thoroughly clean this. Gotta make sure that the edges are not sharp, otherwise we can damage the O-rings. This is now thoroughly clean. We have 2 O-rings that we need to put in the adapter. This is going to be an oil drain line or vent oil line for the supercharger. Before we connect these two, we are going to use Rhinzoplast just in case. Make sure we don't get any leaks here. Remove the excess and reinsert the dipstick. So I have the stock oil dipstick here, and I just want to make sure that we can read the oil level correctly. So I'm going to insert this in here and mark how deep it goes in, and then reinsert it into the modified one, and it is exactly the same. So the reading that we're going to get on the oil dipstick is going to be correct. We have a cable to extend the MAF connector, plug and play. Next we need to extend the throttle body connector, which is this one here. We have wires here, so I need to chop it off and extend it with these wires and just make it all nice and tidy. Like that. And I dropped it. I love my portable soldering kit. Saves so much time. Flux is going to be crucial in this operation. Done. Looks good, doesn't it? Nico sent the missing bolt with DHL Express this morning, which is awesome, but that'll come tomorrow. And in order not to have the downtime, I made my own. Simply drilled a hole through this banjo bolt and tapped the threads. And now this can accommodate the oil pressure switch. First, the Vanos line. And the pressure switch. Give it a nice good twist. And now we have the oil line for the supercharger, which goes to the previous residence of the oil pressure switch on the oil filter housing gasket. Now I'm going to install this line that goes to the CCV and bolt back the CCV. Now we have the extension wire for the oil pressure switch. And now the pressure pipe with a fresh gasket. Sheesh, that is a tight fit. We'll need to slightly modify this bracket here. This is the problem when you're doing this for the first time. You have to take it, fit it, move this, move that. Okie dokie karaoke. Now we can secure the pipe. Idle control valve. Now the more interesting bit, installation of the compressor. First we need to install the pulley on this bracket, base plate. Now we can mount the base plate to the engine. The power steering pump bracket goes in like that. Then the screws for the power steering pump. Gonna use my old torque wrench because I sent my Hazard torque wrenches to Hazard to be recalibrated in preparation for the M3 engine rebuild. Haven't used this in like, oh, I don't know, several years. Okay, it works. Now we're going to mount the power steering bracket. The instructions say to chop off this power steering line and then extend it or move it or something. So let's see first. Maybe it needs to go through here and then there. I think that might be it. Let the power steering fluid drain. All right, I disconnected the lines from the power steering reservoir. We need to modify this bracket for the power steering reservoir. Right now it's in the way and I can't connect this power steering line here. So I'm just gonna grind it ever so slightly around here and then it should clear and we can connect the line. So here's what the trimmed down bracket looks like now. I believe now we should have enough clearance. Now it fits pretty well. I might have made a mistake by grinding this. Maybe it goes somewhat differently in, but I can't see it. I just can't see it, and this was the only way in my head to do it, so it works. Finally, the compressor. You gotta put these studs here. That's the studs installed. Now we can get the O-ring, move it up. And now the flange. The oil return line. And now we are ready to install the compressor. Hey, it's in a bushing here. It is very important that this line has a downward slope, otherwise the oil from the supercharger can't drain into the oil pan. Now we're going to install the compressor pulley. First, greased up O-ring, and then we have the conical bolt, which goes through the pulley, shim on the back. And then this bolt will self-tighten once we start the engine. Now the oil line, I'm not gonna tighten that right now because I wanna do the belt and the power steering line here. Make sure that's seated correctly all around. That's the belt installed. Now I'm gonna play around with the power steering line and see how we're gonna connect that. All right, so I managed to reuse the stock power steering line and not use the one that was supplied with the kit because that one fits even worse. It's not ideal fitment because the power steering line is touching the bracket and the coolant line, so I don't like it, but at this point there's nothing else I can do. So I'm gonna run it like this and then I'm gonna keep an eye on this and maybe come up with a better solution how to route this power steering line. So far everything fits great, but the only issue is, well, lack of space for the power steering reservoir and the lines to route them properly. Everything is very tight, but I mean, this engine was never designed to run a supercharger, so it is what it is. Remove this line here. It is no longer needed. This connects to the idle control valve. The throttle body. Now we have the lubed up O-ring here. First we're gonna reinstall the diesel valve. Now the intake. Plug in the MAF. And with that, the supercharger install is done. And lastly, we got to replace the fuel injectors. Use compressed air around the injector holes. These are brand new fuel injectors that are going to continue and live on in Project Cologne because they're currently discontinued. You can't buy them brand new. These are the upgraded injectors that come with the kit. I have O-ring grease here. It's very important that we don't tear up the O-rings. The clips. Reinstall the injectors. Fuel injectors done, everything buttoned up, topped off the power steering fluid. Now I'm waiting on Infinitas to send me back the tune file because of course you have to tune it. We put a supercharger and different injectors in it. All right, the car is tuned, time to start it. They did tell me that it might run a bit rough in the beginning and that we need to drive it to reset adaptations, but let's see. Gonna go get power steering fluid. Runs smooth. It seems to be running very smooth. The belt looks good. Oh, these injectors are loud. A lot louder than the stock ones. So I'm gonna let it warm up just to make sure we don't have any leaks. That sounds sweet to me. And the idle is pretty good. All right, let's go for a spin. Autobahn. I should add that I put Alpina software on this gearbox even before I put the supercharger, which makes it about 20 times better. The gear changes are faster, it holds the revs better. When you drive the car faster, the gearbox just feels better and it's changing the gears quicker. That being said, the days of this clunkomatic are numbered, it just can't keep up with the car anymore, especially now with the supercharger. It's not the right experience for this car. So 6-speed manual is what's happening in the next episode. There we go. It pulls so much better. Definitely feels a lot different. Stupid gearbox! What are you doing? Yeah, the colder it is outside, the better the car pulls because of the intake temperature, and I need to put actually a cold air intake on it and just relocate that thing from sucking the hot air from the engine bay to maybe the bumper. I'll see if I can do that, although I don't know if I want to suck dirt from the road, but we'll see. I already talked to Infinitas. They told me that's going to be a really good thing to do. Quite hot, the gearbox. I did get fail-safe mode a couple of times, but as far as the usability of the supercharger kit goes, it's like it's not there. You have more power, but everything feels OEM, which I really, really like.
After verifying that all is working as it should, we are going straight for the lie detector. I put the car on the dyno before installing the supercharger, and we got 225 PS. Slightly lower than stock, and the reason for that is a better flowing exhaust that I installed but kept the stock tune. With a correct tune, it would actually make more power than stock. The first run with a supercharger we got 264 PS. The car was running way too hot with 115 degrees Celsius intake temperature, and the DME was pulling the ignition to protect the engine. After letting it cool down, the second pass we got 271 horses with 105 degrees intake temperature, which is way too hot, and the car simply telling us that it needs an intercooler to run optimally. While at Brabant Performance for this dyno session, the owner Felix is dailying a familiar face. Pre-facelift E65 B7 with a whopping 276,000 kilometers and all original engine. He's running water methanol injection, a different pulley, and this beast is making around 570 horsepower. Anywho, I went to visit Infinitas in Gachenbach as I wanted them to inspect my installation and to put the car on their dyno. I met with the CEO Nico, who gave me a quick tour of their beautiful newly built facility. All engineering, development and production is done in-house, and they do amazing things here. Their focus is BMW and Mercedes, and they offer loads of supercharger kits for various models, but they also work with the OE manufacturers. For example, the supercharger kit in Project Chicago, Alpina B7, was developed and supplied by Infinitas in cooperation with Alpina. Their ASA superchargers are famous for robustness and reliability, upping the power of your engine while maintaining the general usability, which is exactly what I want for Project Rottweil. Walking around here, I'm getting some crazy ideas for other projects.
Oh my god! That is so loud! Machine gun fire! I love the interior. That is insane.
It's not normal.
That's why it's not registered. Track car.
Yeah, only.
Their mechanic inspected my work, and after giving a green light, we put the car on the dyno. It was colder outside on this particular day, and the intake temperature went down a bit to 93 degrees Celsius, which returned 285 PS. That's still very high and what's robbing a lot of the power. Especially in the case of a supercharged engine, it's all about getting that cold air into the combustion chamber. As the cold air is denser, it means more oxygen for the engine, which DME will counter with more fuel, and that equals to more power. Once we sort that out, this bad boy will easily make over 300 horsepower. On top of that, the stupid Clankomatic has more drivetrain powertrain loss compared to a manual, and by getting rid of it, we'll get more power at the wheels and the car will feel much more alive.
Which brings us to stage 2 of this build. In the next episode, we are going to retrofit a 6-speed manual transmission out of E46 M3. Then we're gonna head back to Infinitas, put the car on the dyno, and see if there's any power difference and how the car behaves versus the old outdated Clank-O-Matic. And right after that, most importantly, we are going to install the S58 water-cooled intake manifold, which will keep the air intake temperature under control permanently. And while at it, we are going to add a smaller supercharger pulley. When all said and done, we should make 320, 330, maybe even 340 PS, which is going to be really, really sweet for this car paired with the 6-speed manual transmission. One more thing before we say goodbyes. Call me old-fashioned, but I like having a badge in the back that actually represents the size of the engine. I like it. It's subtle. And those that know will know, and those that don't, well, they'll just think it's an old stock 5 Series, and it sure isn't. Under the hood, that is. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.